Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm Bones. Hello.
I met you in person for the Washington Cube Champs, where we were playing your super sick Iganjo Drift Cube. After I posted the episode about it, you contacted me and said, hey, custom Magic, we got to do more of this.
That's right. I get to talk to people about Cube pretty often. I'm lucky that way, but I very rarely get to talk to other people about custom design.
We were talking through different ideas, and then you brought up a project that you had worked on about Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and how to translate that into Magic. I was confused. I've played some of these back in the day, but just so the listeners kind of know what's going on. Final Fantasy Tactics was like a PlayStation game, Final Fantasy themed. You have jobs. It's kind of a serious story. You have like a little army of maybe, 6 or 8 units in any given battle, and you're doing, turn-based. Oh, you can move 4 squares. You can shoot an arrow up to 3 squares kind of stuff. And then Advance is kind of the lighthearted for kids, but in like a good way. Like, hey, let's make this a little friendlier, a little cuter. Game Boy version of that, or Game Boy Advance version of that.
Yeah, the PlayStation 1 game is more well-regarded, and a lot of people think the story is some of the best Final Fantasy stories, or maybe strategy game stories that exist. It has a lot of shades of gray.
Okay, yeah.
And then the Advance, I'm not going to pretend that the story is any better, but I like the gameplay a lot more.
Oh, okay. So I think I remember that this game it's like an isekai kind of thing. Like it starts in the real world. It's some kids who are kind of sad, and then they get teleported into fantasy world where they live out a different life.
You are a new kid at school, and then all your friends and your brother have different reasons that they're sad about real life. And then you and your group find a magic book and read about it, and then you wake up in the fantasy world, and your friends and your brother have had their lives improved, and you have to decide what to do about them.
Yeah, I kind of remember the tutorial battle as like a snowball fight, but
that's right.
In modern day, yeah. I think the other thing I remember about Tactics Advance, well, we're kind of carving out what a set would be, like a Magic set. What should it hit that's different from other things? I remember it being like tribal or typal in Magic terms, like humans have different jobs, or Humes have different jobs from Moogles, have different jobs from the rabbit people, have different jobs from, I can't quite remember the other races.
Yeah, and the other races are Vera, the rabbit people, Banga, lizard people, and Numau, which are kind of crouched. I don't really have a description for them people, just another beast race.
Oh, okay.
And then in A2, we got 2 more races, which were Seek, which are kind of pig-like people, and a race that all have wings. They're all flyers, I would guess, if you have to translate them into Magic terms. And they are the Gria.
Oh, okay. And some of these crossover with, I think it's Final Fantasy 12 is the shared.
Yeah, that's right. So the world is called Ivalice, Ivalice, and they have the same lore and world.
The dress is all very fancy among all characters in this world.
Yeah, quite flamboyant, or maybe just over the top.
Yeah. So if we're kind of thinking through other things that are kind of tropey about this world, this is one of the games where there's like a lot of job, guild, quest sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I'm going to be part of this guild. I'm going to take on this little side quest. Is that true in your mind as well?
Absolutely. There's a couple dozen of main story missions, and in that you're going to be doing a ton of side quests to be properly prepared for the main story missions. And a lot of the side quests have really cool, kind of deep side stories that you can maybe get a special unit, or you can even unlock some motivations for a character that's an antagonist, and then they become part of your team at the end of it.
Oh, okay.
But you could just run down the main story and just beat it the normal way if you like punishment.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, for like a Game Boy game, it's nice to have a whole ton of short missions, because you want to be able to play for 15-20 minutes.
Yep, exactly.
Anything else kind of about the setting that we want to catch people up on?
The big things that I am compelled to include are jobs being important. So more of a Morningtide approach rather than Lorwyn in terms of types mattering, and doing something that mechanically evokes what each of the classes played like that was different.
I'm just looking at a list of jobs. I don't know. I don't remember that much specifically, but let's say like multiple characters are all black mages. You want all those black mages to work exactly the same. Multiple characters are both thieves. You want all the thieves to have the same mechanic. You want, whenever you see a given class, you want that to have like a really strong identity.
We're gonna. It's impossible not to talk about the Final Fantasy set
Oh
that just
yeah,
came out.
absolutely, yeah.
But just like the example from that set being the black mages are, you cast a non-creature spell, you get to deal indirect damage, and that's the way that you're kind of winning the game. Is over
Yeah.
attrition while you're controlling. You're just getting all these pings in until you can maybe burn out the opponent.
Yeah.
And then the martial classes like soldier or warrior are going to be more about combat generally. You can have a guess of how the classes will play, and then ideally, if I've designed it well, just collecting multiple creature types like that will have some mechanical cohesion while you're playing.
And so this is maybe a little bit less about like legends, like a normal Universes Beyond, where you'd have like, 40 legends in the same set. This is more about building an identity to your little group, having the little group work together as a team pretty well, and then seeing a bunch of adorable little characters, really.
Yep. I really like the way that Zendikar Rising is designed, where you have sets of classes that work together, like blue-red wizards and black-white clerics that are distinct, and then you also have little patches of party where you want to collect the different ones, and then you get some bonus for having an assortment of classes.
Yeah. Do you also want like a lot of the monsters from the game? Is that important to you? Or are there a lot of monsters in it? Or is it mostly just like humanoid on humanoid stuff?
In this one, in Advance and A2, it is a lot of monsters. In the original PS1 game, it was a lot more human conflict, which was the basis of the story. So almost a Game of Thronesy type, just human on human conflict, sometimes resolved through combat, sometimes resolved through politics.
Yeah.
And in these games, it was beat up the bomb and the flan and the flying eye.
It's rampaging the local farmland. We need a hero to step up to save the day. We obviously are in the middle of the Final Fantasy Wizard set, the canon set being out. You probably started this before that. What was the relationship between the two things?
Yeah, I started designing this, I think about 6 months before they announced the set.
Oh.
And I was just doing some exploratory ideas for the way that I would have executed on Tactics Advance as a card set. And then they announced the set. And I said, okay, I'm going to put a pin in this. I'm going to see how they approach it, because I had some hurdles that I was facing. And I was like, I want to see what they do with these types of challenges that I've got. And if I disagree with them, I'll just come back and do it however I want. If I like it, there's no reason to do the work twice. I'll just incorporate what they've done into my design.
Yeah. The most novel thing to me in terms of how they approached Final Fantasy that seems relevant to your set is how they did jobs, which is through the job select equipment. Except for the Black Mage stuff, which is its own little pocket of stuff, because that's also like a story thing in 9.
True.
Most of the classes show up just once. There's like one samurai equipment, one ninja equipment, one white mage equipment. There's like one of each of those. Whereas maybe what you're looking for is to have like 4 animist, 4 illusionist, or what, I'm not sure what the classes are, but you're looking to have a lot of classes show up several times each.
Yeah, and definitely in a way that is a bit like the magic common, uncommon, rare structure. So I might have one assassin and then multiple of the lower rarity fencers that are a prerequisite common starter class that you're going to spend a lot of time in before finally unlocking the ability to play as the assassin.
In order to have the cool axe guy, you need to play as the chumpy soldier guy for a while.
Yeah, and that's hopefully will be expressed through gameplay when you're used to facing these common, easily accessible classes frequently, and they are kind of the brick and mortar of the experience of the environment. And then you rarely have these interactions with much more powerful classes that take time to unlock, like Summoner and Assassin.
How do I get new skills? Like, I'm a red mage and I only know fire. How do I learn Fira? How do I learn another spell?
So the interesting thing about this game, and this is the way that I very first approached the set, is that you learn skills from your equipment, from the items, the weapons that you have unlocked over time. So, for example, the broadsword can be equipped by the soldier or the warrior class, and it teaches you first aid, just to a healing spell, and you can learn it pretty quickly after just a couple of battles. Then you have mastered first aid, and then no matter what class you change to or whatever, you always have that first aid permanently known by the unit. And you can remain a soldier and keep learning things like rend power, rend magic, or a warrior can learn different offensive abilities. And then once you have mastered enough skills, then you have access to the higher tier classes like fighter and gladiator.
Oh, okay. So you have your crew of, I don't know, 5, 10 characters that you have the whole game. And each of them has learned a chunk of the overall canon. And you can equip a couple of those for each character or something like that.
Yeah, you'll have your whatever your primary class is that you're currently on, which is sort of setting your character's stats. And then you have a secondary class, which is any class they have ever been, and they have access to all the abilities that they've ever learned before.
Wow. Okay, so really flexible.
Yeah, it's not the sum of all of it. It's your primary and your secondary. And then if you learned 3 other skills on the way, you can't have all of them. You have to pick your 2 that you care about per person.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's sort of like the stuff I'm working on now, and then the stuff I want to borrow that I've already learned.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I guess mixing 2 different classes is starting to feel like part of the identity of the game and part of what we might want to capture.
Exactly. So as an example, if you had a gunner, or I think it's called a fusilier in this game, but if you had a gunner job select equipment, and it's like a prodigal pyromancer, it's like 2 in a red, job select, equipped creature has tap, deal 1 damage to any target.
Yeah.
And then you also have Thief of Secrets in 2 blue that's gets +1 whenever it deals damage to an opponent, draw a card. And then it's just going to play like the 2/2 for 3 that if it hits the opponent, you draw a card. Well, if you mix and match those, if you put them on the same unit, then it can ping the opponent to draw a card.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the kind of emergent mix and match that I would really like to highlight.
Maybe part of what we're trying to do is carve out what the main interaction points are. Like each color is bringing a thing that other things can build off of pretty easily. So maybe the red equipment is often dealing damage. And so I have a bunch of stuff in other colors that says when you deal damage, blah, blah, blah.
Some of them I think would definitely have to be just very basic. And then the combination would be I'm very good at combat by the virtue of the 2 different combat mechanics I have obtained.
Yeah.
You can't all be Galaxy Brain combos.
Yeah. This is something that a lot of people want with their custom cards. Like, oh, it's going to be all interaction, like all these mad science interaction.
Yeah.
That's the premise of what I'm doing. And that's kind of a hard thing to follow up on. It's hard to have a system or a procedure to generate novel interactions.
Yeah. And you don't want to melt players' brains either.
Yeah. Maybe part of the tools that we get to use are a lot of these payoffs are at the uncommon level. So there are a lot of uncommons. There are 3 to 5 per pack now. So your deck's going to have 10 uncommons in it, maybe. So we have access to things that can pay us off that are a little more complicated, but also we have the commons that aren't quite so bad that are setting those things up.
I have a specific way that I like to set up booster packs in my custom sets, and I'm curious to hear your take on it. I do 8-4-2-1, 8 commons, 4 uncommons, 2 rares, and 1 land, a mana fixing land.
Okay, double rare pack. Yeah, okay. I do a lot of block cube kind of stuff, and I have enjoyed the double rare in those because sometimes there are some goofball rares, or rather, I would hate to omit goofball rares. But if all 3 of the packs that you open had a goofball rare, that's kind of sad when you're playing a retro block format.
Yeah, I hear you.
So if I go double rare, I usually have half of them be good rares and half of them be goofballs.
Perfect.
And then I guess you can still God pack it and have all bombs, but I'm a supporter of the double rare packs.
Nice. The way that I did my last one that I've got the most experience with was exactly 2 copies of every common, exactly 1 copy of every uncommon, plus a second set of the signpost uncommons.
Oh, okay.
And then the rares were the quantity was such that you get half the rares in a given draft.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Every draft won't have the same rares.
Yeah, they're all singleton. Yeah, that's a formula I like a lot as well. It's not super common that you're playing the same cube, the same kind of novelty cube many, many times, but it is nice to not have an exact locked pool of rares, the 30 rares that are always in every draft. You have a little more than that so they can rotate through.
Yeah, and when I have been showing off the set to a group that is like out of town and I know they're going to be their only draft, I will definitely rate the rares which are the most compelling.
Ooh, I like this. The finely curated rare selection, dude.
Yeah. This is my weird lich enchantment. I'm not going to show you that.
Oh, okay. I guess maybe we could start to get into some of the designs you're thinking about or mechanics, stuff like that. It sounds like you're still pretty early, so we're not necessarily in the headspace of like, I want to make sure that this mana value with this, amount of power and toughness is the right amount. That's not quite what we're looking for. We're looking more for potential. We're sort of thinking through when I hear this mechanic and see it on a sample card, it's more about the mechanic, less about the sample card.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, we're pretty early in Final Fantasy having been out, and I just started design in earnest again, knowing exactly what they have done fully with the set. So as soon as we lined up that we were going to talk, I paused. I didn't go much deeper so that I could save some of it to talk to you about.
All right, love it. Where do we want to start?
The way that I started, and like I said, in tactics, your units learn skills from their weapons during battle. So the first thought I had was to tweak the learn mechanic from Strixhaven, and because that feels like a kind of a clean marriage of mechanics and flavor to learn something. Because again, you're learning skills from your weapons while you play.
Yeah.
And my thought was, when I say tweak, I mean give them subtypes. So martial classes could learn martial lessons, which would be like buffs and combat tricks, and magic classes would learn more universal spells like graveyard interaction or card selection. And then some niche classes could learn monsters. If they're a beast master, they're the only ones that can learn creatures. Or equipment. If they're like a gladiator, they can learn equipment right out of the sideboard. And just give it like a kind of clean outcome. Once you learn what learn does, like you take a card out of your sideboard, or you discard a card to draw a card, and then you give it this one tweak of like these characters can only learn these things. Then hopefully the players can grok that and then begin to draft.
Yeah. So are these still all? So we got learn, which is the thing that causes this to happen, but then you've got lessons, which are the cards you go and get.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're thinking of expanding this out from just sorceries? You're going to have like a less kindred lesson creature, whatever.
Well, I think what I would prefer for the creatures is simply have it on the character doing the changed rule to spell it out. So, for example, this Beastmaster may learn creatures with the subtype monster. So may learn monsters as though they were lessons, that kind of thing, rather than have it spelled out on the monsters themselves.
Oh, monsters as a lesson. So you'd have a couple creatures in your sideboard. Would you find any creature? I don't know. I don't know what the answer should be.
For the monster example, the creatures that are non-sapient, I guess, the creatures that are monstrous would have the creature type monster.
Oh,
and then you couldn't learn like another move. You would only be able to learn these monsters like Bomb and Malboro, things like that.
Okay.
And then the summoners would learn Saga creatures. I think that they did that perfectly.
Okay.
In the Final Fantasy set.
You just run it back and throw 5 relevant ones into your set.
I think there are 8 or 10 in Tactics Advance.
Oh, okay.
It would not be a huge number.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the 25 or whatever it is. Yeah.
No. But it would be all the ones in the game just because you want to get the representation.
Oh, okay. Because you could probably hit just the right number of them. All right, so we'd have like creature monster and then monster lesson or monster learn, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have certain classes that would just spell out you can learn monsters as though they were lessons.
Okay. But then I kind of tunneled on the corner case first there.
That's okay. You're right.
Otherwise, you'd have sorcery martial lesson, sorcery mage lesson, or how do you think that would shake out?
Yeah, exactly. And again, this is how I had sketched out in the beginning. But I will give you the full background. So for example, the human soldier would learn a martial lesson, and the martial lessons would be like a reprisal, 1 and a white sorcery, destroy a creature power 4 or greater, and it would just be kindred sorcery martial lesson. And the reason it's kindred is because then the mages, like the white mage, would have the creature type mage, and the spells that they go get, mage lessons, would be kindred sorcery,
Oh,
mage lesson, spelled out that they have they have a
yeah,
shared creature type.
yeah, fair enough. Huh.
Speaking of the mages, so that's where my first big hurdle came with this approach, the learn approach. So there are 5 colors of magic, and there are 5 Final Fantasy mages that have the exact name as the colors of magic. And
Hmm.
white mages using white magic is great. Green mages were introduced in this game. They use green magic, which is kind of a supportive buffing magic or protective magic, which is
Yeah.
great. That's fine for green.
Yeah.
Blue mages use their enemies' magic. They learn from monsters in the game, but learning from your opponents is fine and is also represented in the Final Fantasy set. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to black and red mages, which is where we run into a problem. Because in the game, the black mages' bread and butter spells are fire, lightning, and blizzard,
Yeah.
which are red and blue spells. And red mages are able to use low level white and black magic,
Yeah.
which would be represented by white and red and blue ice magic spells. So I was
Yeah.
really vexed by how can I make these common classes like
Yeah.
black mage reliably access spells outside their core color.
Have we learned anything from the canon release, from the Wizards release, on what we want to do about that, or you still feel unresolved?
I did feel that their approach with the mechanic tiered was very cool, where
Okay.
the single spell is called fire magic, and then you can kick mana into it to make it fire or Fyra or Fyraga. I had those initially as different spells at common,
Okay.
uncommon, and rare in the set, and I think that theirs is much cooler.
Fair enough.
So I'm happy to steal tiered. That's very cool.
Okay.
Then they don't really have an approach to black mages casting those spells as much as they just make black mage very broad. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which all of those are, sure, you deal a damage to each opponent. And the way that I approached that hurdle was with a mechanic that I made up for a different set, a Pokemon set, called coin tokens.
Okay.
And because a bunch of video games use coins, it's just
Sure,
some amount of overlap I get to use here.
Gil.
Which should actually be Gil. Good call. And a coin is just a clue treasure. You can only activate its abilities as a sorcery. So it has a very different play pattern from regular clue and treasures. You can't wait till the end step. You can't use instants. It's just during your turn, mana fixing, color fixing, I should say.
A combo type. Like it has both abilities. When you make one, you make both, basically, or together. They're
it's a single artifact that does both things. And then like the flavor is that you can't spend coins unless it's peacetime outside of combat. You can't do it on your opponent's turn. You're going to go to the shop during your turn.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
and I've enjoyed that flavor. And then that was my fix. So like for example, the red mage was when this creature enters, create a coin token, and then learn a mage lesson with mana value 3 or less. Because the red mages are only supposed to learn low level magic. Again, at this time, I had them as separate spells, so you simply could not learn Fyraga because it cost too much mana to learn.
Oh, funny.
And then the coin would color fix if you learned Blizzard, then you would be able to cast it in your red blue deck or your red white deck because the coin is going to pay for your off color mana.
Yeah, red mage is sort of like a jack of all trades in Final Fantasy typically. Like they can also use like some swords and stuff.
Yeah, they're medium fighters. They're about as offensively powerful as a thief. And then they're about as magically powerful as a white mage or black mage for the first 10 levels, and then they fall as far as magic damage.
I just played through Final Fantasy 1 through 6 over the last couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And red mage, I would say big thumbs up in the first game, because all you want to be doing is melee attacking. Spells are kind of overrated. So red mage gets like the healing spells you need, skips the damage spells you don't really need, and can still slam a huge sword on an enemy with the best of them.
You can beat Final Fantasy 1 with a party of all red mages. There are some levels that you have to like know frog and some of the things for like traversing the overworld.
Oh yeah. In 2 or 3, I think, is where you have to do like puzzles with magic. You have to turn you have to turn into a frog. Yeah, I remember that.
And there is a way to challenge yourself by playing exclusively red mages, which I've always found very funny.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of red mage fans. I don't know.
They're very cool. Just the aesthetic of the red mage is very compelling.
they kind of look like Carmen San Diego. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And Carmen San Diego's cool. So, so the way you're expressing sort of jobliness or whatever is which learn you do. And
Mhm.
so a large portion of these creatures are going to be learning lessons of different specific types. And then, or, when you were first working on this.
Yeah,
So most or many, like more so than in Strixhaven, we're going to be seeing lessons. Is that sort of what you're thinking?
that's what I was thinking, is that you have a pretty broad array of things that are learnable.
Okay.
And then you have a pretty broad array of commons that do learning. So there would be a lot more than Strixhaven.
Okay.
On some level, they always have to play it safe at WotC because they can break constructed.
Yeah.
But you don't have to in custom world. So of course you want to be realistic with your designs, but
Yeah.
I was definitely more ambitious than WotC in the amount of learn that I initially wanted to put in the set.
I just play tested just randomly a couple days ago. Someone had put together, a pair of people put together a Baldur's Gate 3 themed custom cube, I guess you'd say.
Mhm.
A lot of those cards are not what you'd say are realistic Magic cards, but that is not necessarily the objective. Like the objective could just be, here's this crazy thing I'm letting you guys do.
Yeah.
Because I think it's cool and I think it matches the video game well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It can be kind of tough because it also means like when you go to get feedback. I ran into this when I had like a custom set that I play tested at a game store for a year or two. And all the stuff that was not regulation Magic, that's what all the feedback forums were about. Like even whether or not the cards played well. Like I remember I had this land cycle that I had at common that was like a little more powerful than you'd put at common. And then every week someone would mention the lands. And like, I need to change these lands just so I stop getting feedback about them.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But I guess with the lesson thing, with the play pattern thing, maybe it's not quite so obvious what's unusual, I guess. Like that there are more lessons than usual. Well, that's fine. You can have lessons. Like that, no one's going to object to that.
Mm-hmm. Unless it's just the the kind of the overload that comes from looking at spells in a pack and knowing that there is more relevant text on them than usual. And is maybe just a little bit of additional burden that people are considering while they are drafting. That they normally you could look at a non-lesson fog spell when you're not in green and go, nope, don't need to look at that. But here you go, oh, what if I have access to green and I can learn this, and I have to consider it.
Yeah, what if I got my red mage squad and I got all kinds of coin treasures?
Yeah, I've got the coins and now I've got to consider this. I guess that's a bad example because you can't use coins on fog when it's not your turn. But,
oh, well.
But yeah, an example like that where I'm going to sorcery speed giant growth before combat, so I'm going to think about this green card in my red blue deck.
Yeah. Having splashing be the identity for one of the sort of factions or creature groups. Yeah. All right, so that was all pre
that was all
massive meteor fall that was the Final Fantasy retail release.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of where I left off.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm returning the design process, I know that I'm going to be using tiered spells. I know that I want to use saga creatures as summons.
Yeah.
I know that I want to use job select equipments.
Oh, okay.
The primary returning mechanic, as far as canon magic, that I expect to use is modified, since it's perfect with saga creatures because they have counters on them, and it's perfect with job select because all your creatures will be modified inherently whenever they enter with job select. I actually was a little bit annoyed that they didn't bring back historic for the Final Fantasy set because it's so perfect with saga creatures and equipment artifacts and legendary creatures at uncommon. It would have been total banger, and I always want more historic cards. They did print Traxos on the bonus sheet. But,
awesome.
But I don't expect to have that many legends, like you already said. So I'm going the modified route, and I really like Neon Dynasty drafts, so hopefully I can get some cards from there in here.
Let's think through that a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
So modified is sort of representing that only a portion of the cards in your format will want to have equipment or counters or auras. What is modified?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's equipment, auras, and counters. Auras you control, to be specific.
Oh, we got Judge Bones on the cast. And I guess unless I'm playing the monster deck, I flavor-wise just assume that everybody in the setting is using equipment at all times. Like I'm always modified.
Yeah, you will very frequently have modified.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I dare say was also the case in Neon Dynasty with so many common sagas.
Sure.
Although those weren't creatures, so they don't count as modified. I retract my statement. With common equipments, perhaps, and plus gunners running around, maybe modified was more normal than usual.
Do you feel modified was a big part of Neon Dynasty draft format? Like I remember it being there, but it wasn't, at least to me, a big part.
I am very much a red mage, and I play red more often than other colors when I can. And I think Kami's Flare, which cares about you having a modified creature, the 1 in a red instant 3 damage to a creature, and then 2 damage to its controller if you have a modified creature, was hugely important to me in that format. So there is also the chance that I overrate it because I was always looking for Kami's Flare in every Neon Dynasty draft.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at the modified cards now just to kind of get a sense. And I think, at least for me and how I was playing it, modified existed, but was not part of how I drafted that set. Like I might have a card that like there's like a creatures you control get 2 extra power, and then modified creature, you get to draw a card.
Yeah.
It was incidental modified, but it was not like a core, at least to me. The individual modified cards were not a huge part of it to me. But hey, that's the benefit here is that now you get to do that, but have it matter more. You know, I guess if we have a piece of flavor or a problem we're trying to solve in the set where like we need extra incentive to stay equipped, to not like just throw away our equipped creatures or throw away our creatures with counters. Modified gives us extra glue, extra reason to put modified in a set.
Yeah. I do try to bring back something familiar anytime I'm doing custom design. As kind of I get this on first glance when you don't have to do a whole context shift looking at so many of the cards.
Yeah, maybe part of what I'm wondering, which, hey, this is just thinking out loud, but I'm wondering how much like +1/+1 theming I want to add to this set, or I guess maybe growth level up. You might want to have that flavor, and that's why you want counters.
Sure.
I feel like I'm more about I want equipment and I want lessons, or whatever your replacements for lessons are, and that's the thing that I'm really going to care about more so than counters.
Yeah. And that's fair. I don't know how many saga creatures I can put in common, so maybe I'm overstating the relevance of modified saga creatures as well.
There might literally be 2, and they're like, probably Ifrit and Shiva or whatever your versions of those are from that game. Yeah, I don't know. So modified, and then you have a new version of your lesson stuff, right?
And then back to the meat of it. So upon revisit, now looking at it a year after the initial pitch, I've grown a little more critical of the learn approach, just because. So lesson and learn has a lower rate of efficiency that they appear at, because it's just pure card advantage. If you learn, unless you miss and you're just rummaging, then you're getting a card that you choose from your sideboard into your hand.
Absolutely.
Which is quite powerful. So combined with the fact that some of them were getting pretty wordy, like you learn a white mage lesson, which is like a whole sentence that is all relevant, I'm thinking about going a different direction, which is what I want your feedback on, is the new direction.
Yeah.
And that is a mechanic that I'm calling Shop.
That's good.
It is inspired by the Market from the Eternal card game by Direwolf Digital.
Okay, yeah.
Rather than getting a card from your sideboard, you instead have to buy it with either a card from your hand or an artifact. So, for example, Red Mage version 2, 2/2 for 2 and a red. When this creature enters, create a treasure token and shop for magic with mana value 3 or less. To shop, you may sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. If you do, reveal an instant or sorcery card with mana value 3 or less from your sideboard, and then that's just shopping for magic with a qualifier, mana value 3 or less. A white mage could shop for white magic. I'm not exactly positive what a black mage would do yet. Probably just shop for magic, because black mages have a pretty broad swath of spells.
So white magic, does that literally mean a white card?
A white instant or sorcery card.
Okay, like a lowercase white.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that. All right, so the market, this is sort of like a sideboard, but not your whole sideboard. What is the market?
The market in Eternal is 5 cards that you pick, and then you can
Oh,
swap cards between your hand and the market with certain effects that will qualify it.
nice.
So,
Yeah.
for example, there's a card that swaps a red card in the market with a card in your hand. You can pitch your extra lands, you can pitch your spells or your creatures that aren't effective right now for whatever red card you want from your market with your red merchant.
Hmm.
In my version, I hesitate to limit the sideboard to 5, like with the market mechanic. There is a world where you go into every game selecting 5 cards that you want to choose from,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure of the value of that added overhead in like the physical gameplay
Yeah.
when your sideboard's going to be 15 cards anyway, in limited, I mean.
I'm curious what your impressions were of how lessons and sideboards played out. I played probably a lot more of it in Arena than I did in paper. And in
Mhm.
Arena, it's like super smooth, obviously. Like you just see the
Yes.
ones that are valid. There's probably 3 choices, 1 choice, whatever, and then you take it. In paper, I sort of have 2 sideboard piles, right? Like, because
Mhm.
I don't totally want to reveal to my opponent quite how many lessons I have, because if I only have 2, then they're going to know that at some point all my learns get bad. I kind of want it to be face up, but then my opponents sort of have to look at my whole shop before the game starts. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's this like secret huge pile, right? Like your
Yeah.
limited sideboard of 70 cards, or I don't know what the number is, but and I want to disguise, some number of them in there, but I could freely look through all 70 of them if I want to, when I'm shopping.
Yeah,
Uh,
and sealed makes a huge difference versus draft as well, because
that's
you are
true.
going to have a massive chunk of available cards in a sealed sideboard.
Yeah, yeah. With this like shop for white magic, if we're saying like lowercase white, as we were saying before, like
Mhm.
I could literally be looking at like 11 different cards to choose from. I might not have that many actual white cards in my deck, except for the like really good ones because I'm splashing white. I'm mostly blue green.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking through like what that would feel like, what it's like to have that pile, to remember to pick it up, to remember to, sleeve or de-sleeve if it's going into a library
Mhm.
or something. But I think it's appealing. People will want to do it. If I play this red mage, like this card, if I'm just reading this card, I barely know about this set. I'm just evaluating 1 card out of the set. And I
Mhm.
could maybe even use this card outside of your set, the way that it's written right now. When it enters, get a treasure, and then look in my sideboard for an instant or sorcery that costs 3 or less. I got a treasure, so I can do every color. This feels like a relatively high power card that I'm looking at right now, at least for a common. Like I can go get something that's a splash. I don't have any black in my deck. I can go get a pretty solid black card, like a kill spell or something. Like I want to play that card, and that card seems really appealing, which is step one. You know what I mean? Making a card
Mhm.
that people want to play. Do we want 25 cards in the set that take this action? I guess is the next step after that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. And I do think versus my original plan with learning martial and magic lessons, I
yeah,
think in this version and just the way that it should have been perhaps all along
yeah,
is that the martial classes are more focused on equipment and less on getting the spells, and that it's the mage classes that do a bit more of this learning or shopping for magic, and maybe the martial a couple martial classes will shop for an equipment, but for the most part, this effect is limited to wizards. Yeah, hopefully it would be on like 5 to 7 commons and then some more uncommons.
okay, okay. The instinct to say, hey, if you want to shop, you have to pay something brings the like just raw value, raw power level down
Mhm.
to like an appropriate level where we're not like automatically making cards that are too good. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that is a fear.
Or not too good, but so that you have to make the creatures really small, which would be its own problem.
Yeah.
So we're good there. I guess it's just the overhead, the mechanical, like physical sort of like what is it like to shop for a spell with mana value 3 or less? I guess maybe in reality you wouldn't have that many. Is that sort of what we're thinking?
Well, ever since you said sealed, it's all I can think about.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Oh,
my in draft, yeah, I don't think you would have that many because you're gonna want to run some number of them in your main deck, and then you only have
yeah.
so many leftovers that you can commit outside. to have this red mage be able to learn. But yeah, now I am kind of leaning further on setting aside a subset before the game begins, and that's the shop that you have access to.
If I know I'm playing a custom set, and I know that this person is willing to go outside the bounds of legal shaped magic cards. I don't know how to say that, but like, I don't want to say realistic. I don't know. Whatever I say sounds a little judgmental, and that's not at all what I'm trying to do.
I get what you mean.
I would like to play sets made by freaks, like even further than anything we've talked about. I'm happy to do that, like Hellcube kind of stuff. But if I know that ahead of time, hey, this is going to do things differently than a normal Magic set that we'd probably never see in a Magic set, the idea of shopping for Magic is like extremely enticing. Like, it's really cool. And I would say, from what I have learned about Tactics Advance, also a very good fit for how the game works. In order to advance my characters, I got to buy a new club for this guy. I got to buy a new katana for this guy. I got to buy a new staff for this guy, and then hand it to them. And then they'll learn some new stuff. Like, shopping is a quarter of the game, probably.
Very true.
And maybe even more so than regular Final Fantasy. And that's where we're trying to differentiate. We're trying to say, like, hey, regular Final Fantasy, the Squall has Lionheart or whatever, and we don't really care about his other swords. Here we're saying we're going to have 5 different fighter swords in this game. We're going to have a whole bunch of different, like, wizard robes or whatever. And that's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a new environment by having all this extra stuff that we didn't get to see in normal Final Fantasy.
Yeah, well said.
So the market, you said 5 cards is what they have in Eternal, right?
Mm-hmm. I could see an argument for 7 in Magic because it's the hand size. I could see 10 because it's 2/3 of a constructed sideboard. I'm not exactly sure. It'd definitely be one of the knobs that you have to tweak throughout development.
Yeah, and 7 is the I don't know if this matters. The best of one sideboard, the wish board.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly, shop for Magic with the wizard classes. Shop for equipment with a couple of martial classes. Shop for monster type thing that we mentioned earlier on the, like, Beastmasters would be the new version of Learn a Beast would be.
Yeah.
Shop for a creature with mana value 3 or greater, or shop for a creature that is monster type or something like that. Well, perhaps even a common artifact that's like a smoothing. They always have some smoothing artifact that could be like shopping for land. You can discard a card or sack a treasure to just get a basic out of your sideboard. And if you just commit a couple basics in your sideboard, in your shop, if you commit a couple of slots to basics, then you know that you can get your 3rd land on time some greater percentage of the time because you have this common artifact.
Finally, the rise of the Geomancer.
Exactly, yeah. Shopping for lands and then landfall matters.
I don't know if Geomancer is in this game or not.
It is.
Oh, okay.
You've done it.
After talking through it, I've decided that I got to root for the shop for mechanic, and I got to, like, I'm doing what I can to, like, make sure that we could make this successful. And so I'm thinking, do we have any other tools available? Do we have any other game procedures available to make this smoother than lesson learn, or allow it to do lesson learn, but for a wider pool of cards, or, stuff like that? How do I make it so that every time I need to do the shop thing, I can execute this within 15 seconds or whatever, rather than a minute, which I might have to do with lesson learn sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to, like, have that separate pile? I'm going to look at it, and then I have so few choices that I'm going to slam it down. It's like this whole second hand. Should I be sleeving it? Should I be... I guess in a cube, everything's going to be sleeved.
But it is good to think about that tactile expectation because it can lead you to some choices. Like, how many sleeves does the average person need to bring to a draft of this set? Well, they just bring 50 because they have their 40 main and then their 7 to 10 shop, and then they don't have to sleeve anything else.
Yeah, that's something I don't even remember what I did for, because I only did Strixhaven like once or twice in person. That was like kind of deep COVID time. So
it's true. I wish, maybe some lessons that we did not get to learn because nobody played it in paper.
Yeah. That and Ikoria, I think, were the two.
Yes, Ikoria was I say famous because I'm a judge, but was the famous one because nobody would have been able to learn how mutate works in paper for the first time, but everybody did it on Arena first. So they were able to just learn it through Arena, letting you only do it a certain way.
Yeah.
And then we were spared the pre-release woes of having to teach everyone how mutate actually works.
For some reason, that always reminds me of the in Dungeons and Dragons, they have this concept, the attack of opportunity, which is roughly like, if I'm a big fighter and I'm protecting an area, if you try to walk by me, I get to hit you. Like, you can't just walk past me. And that was something that like always frazzled our brains. And then I think it was Neverwinter Nights, one of the video games, came out. And then once you just see it happen in a video game 8 times, it's like, well, I got this forever. I know exactly how to do this.
Now I'll never forget.
Yeah, I'll never forget. And it's always crystal clear how this works. The digital version giving you those reps. Whereas you might get a real opportunity attack once every 4 real life hours in a tabletop game. But anyhow, is there anything that would like enhance the flavor or make it cooler to interact with? Or because I don't totally know that I want to pull the trigger on the first time I want to shop, I have to slam all the cards like in the middle of the table and look at them. That feels like it could be flavorful, but I don't know that I necessarily want that. Is that something that we might want, or is that something we don't want?
That's a good question. You have to set them aside somewhere that is not your sideboard, so that whenever assuming that we're going with this, like say 5 cards version, then the opponent needs to know that these are the 5 cards that you set aside ahead of time. You're not extra based on what you've learned in the game. Maybe you start with them face down in exile, and then it's like in the zone that's not on the battlefield, but it is in the game. Maybe I hesitate to say they are face up in exile, like they just start in exile. And the mechanic is pulling from your exiled cards with a shop counter on them, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. But because then the opponent is compelled to look at them and think about them, and that's just gonna you don't want the mental overhead every single time with what do they have in their shop.
Yeah, the burden is higher at the start of game. It's the commander thing of like, there's 2 partner commanders I've never seen. I probably need to read that. Oh crap, they're complicated. Do I have to remember what those do, or am I just gonna wait till you beat me with them?
I'll remember when they are cast.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking like, if I have to just slam these, it's a good way to make sure that I'm not tampering with like what my shop is in between shopping trips. Like if it's always the same static, or like it gets smaller each time. If my opponent gets to see what they are the first time, then the second time they can verify, or, roughly verify. They don't have to like write it down, but they can notice, oh, there are like 7 new cards in here because you manipulated them with your sideboard or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you may reveal your shop, and then, because the way I have it worded right now is reveal an instant or sorcery card with mana value 3 or less from your sideboard or that you own from outside the game in regular Magic jargon. And if you simply reveal the shop when you begin shopping, and then put an instant or sorcery card with mana value 3 or less from there into your hand, you get to save a little bit of real estate text, and it can just stay revealed the rest of the game, because of course your opponent could write it down, but it's going to be the same whenever you look at it again. So you may as well just leave it revealed, like on Arena.
Okay. Yeah, on Arena, 7 cards is kind of a lot to consume all at once, but it feels, once I see it once, I get, while my opponent's deciding other stuff, I get to kind of remember they have this burn spell, they have this large creature in their market or whatever. That it stays face up, like while my opponent's taking their long turn, I can at least like look at their shop and try to plan ahead, something like that.
Get both players involved in the shopping trip.
And it would also feel different, which I think is maybe an objective. I don't know. Like I'm playing a different kind of Magic when the shop's involved.
Yeah, and I like that. I like each set to have its own little consistent mechanical flavor that it really feels like Wilds of Eldraine, because there are roll tokens everywhere.
Another step, I could probably talk about this forever. I don't know if we need to, but another kind of lens we can think through is during drafting, how likely is it that I have a bad shop at the end? This was something you had to kind of learn by doing it wrong with Strixhaven, where you'd end and you'd have 1 lesson. You're like, oh crap, I have 5 learns in 1 lesson. Here you're more flexible. You're going to pull all of a variety of cards. But you could reasonably end the draft without like a single worthwhile card to shop for, given like, oh, you must shop for, I don't know, Coolmancer spell, which is something that costs 5 or more and is at least 2 colors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of like, oh, I accidentally filtered my way out of being able to find anything useful or to put in my market. But
Yeah.
maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you'll have enough, like, because it's not a specific card subtype.
Here's a thought. Here's like a
Mhm.
potential floor for the shop.
Yeah.
If you just have 5 basics as your worst possible shop, I guess, or
Mm.
the shop where I don't make any decisions. And
Yeah.
then you have either a common artifact or even you're fixing your land cycle
Yeah.
that interacts in that way with the shop so that you can effectively know that you will most often get the opportunity to shop for a basic to help fix your colors.
Mm.
Then there is no bad shop. And then the wizards who go all in on spells can get whatever fancy spells they want in their shop
Yeah.
to tutor for.
Yeah.
And then the warrior who just wants to play a smooth aggro game can
Yeah.
have this shop that is just helping them hit their third land on turn 3 because they this mana fixing or something. This common thing that lets them discard a card to get whatever basic they need at the time.
Yeah. I guess a couple common things that are colorless that are flavorful, like it could even be like 2 or 3 sizes of weapons, right? For the
Mhm.
warrior people, where it's just here's a medium quality weapon that's 2 mana, that's 4 mana, that's 6 mana. And probably those 6 manas are probably going to go wild because no one wants to draft a 6 mana equipment. But
Yeah.
late game, if it's turn 9, I actually might want a 6 mana equipment.
Yeah.
You know, I might be open to that.
Job select Colossal Dreadmaw.
So easy to, yeah, easy to draft during the Magic draft, and therefore easy to just stow in my shop.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I'm not too concerned that you'd have a completely bum shop that you didn't like. I guess picking which lands you stow in your shop is kind of interesting. Like if I'm a 4-color deck, what are the 2 lands that I stow in there along with the bangers?
Yeah. You're like whenever you're just doing a regular cube and you're green base and you're just splashing everything because green's helping you splash everything else.
Yeah. My Geomancers, I'm picking those high.
Yeah. I'm red base multicolor because red has the most common shops that I found. So
Yeah.
red's gonna fix my colors for everything else.
Yeah, it's not too out of pie for any given color to pull a basic of their type. You know what I mean? It's not too weird. Like we
Yeah.
have island cycling, we have swamp cycling. So it's not a big bend for it to have a blue card grab a blue land out of a sideboard or whatever.
Mhm. If we go that direction, just something that I want to throw
Yeah.
out is that you would have an increase in double pip spells, like murders as your basic removal instead of defenestrate,
Oh, okay. To try
because
to, yeah.
you don't want everyone splashing a single swamp in their shop so that they can play murder off of the single swamp.
Yeah, or like the hypothetical of the red mage that gets a treasure token and then grabs an off-color removal spell, an off-color
Yeah,
draw spell. Yeah, you want that extra.
maybe your more efficient removal or your efficient threats are double
Yeah,
pipped more
yeah,
frequently than the average set because you have potentially coins or gil running
yeah,
around as well as this maybe shop for fixing. Just like a something to note for the roadmap of the set.
yeah. So, what are some of the other classes that we want to get in there? I think we have a fun mechanic. We probably want something else for the other people to do. We're not going to be at the like mega level of like 40, 50 shopping cards. So, like we kind of want something else in this set that is like something we want to shoot for, or something kind of splashy, and or maybe we don't need splash, but we need something else for people to be drafting around.
Yeah, the job selects I think would be a lot of direction pointing. So with
Okay.
the blue I mentioned earlier, blue mages are a lot less common than black mages. In fact, I think the blue mage may the equipment and the creatures may only appear at uncommon in the set.
Hmm.
So the thing that I would expect blue to be doing at common would be more of the thief type classes and
Okay.
doing a lot of saboteur type effects. So maybe a thief that gives you this gil token whenever it hits the opponent, and then
Mhm.
you have it's sometimes it's a clue. So then you have a I always forget it. There's an otter that does it, and it's two EU 2/2 when it hits the opponent.
Ophidian or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. You have these kind of things that you have to pay 2 mana, so it doesn't snowball way out of hand, but it could also be making you treasures when it hits.
Yeah, yeah.
And then some that maybe at a higher rarity might take equipment from the opponent, literal thieves. And if everyone is playing equipment because of job select, you could have them like not literally steal an equipment because then you're going to mess with their creatures, but maybe take an unattached equipment or take an equipment out of their graveyard so that you're not just ruining the fact that they have tokens with equipment attached to them. You can take the ones that they've dropped or whatever.
There's like a blue card in the Final Fantasy set that no one ever cast. That's that they might have had to like tone it down too many times. Oh, here it is. Stolen uniform.
It's stolen uniform. Yeah, I knew exactly what you're talking about.
Choose target. I've never seen this cast. Choose target creature you control and target equipment. Gain control of that equipment until end of turn. Attached to the chosen creature. When you lose control of that equipment this turn, if it's attached to a creature you control, unattach it. Gain control of the equipment until end of turn. So I get to use an equipment until end of turn. Man, that is really narrow.
It's a 1 mana instant. So you have to hope that the job select density is so high that this will be a blowout sometimes.
Yeah, I'll pull the sword off of a warrior, which gives them -3, -2, and gives me +3, +2.
Mm-hmm. And then you blow them out in this combat, and then you give it back, and it's unattached.
And then you give it back unattached.
Yeah, in your +2/+2 scenario, it can be quite potent. But in the Black Mages scenario, does very little. You've already cast the spell. You don't get the trigger. You get +1/+0. Maybe if you increase the density sufficiently, I can reprint this and it will be okay. but maybe not. So
it is a cool plot point. It is a gimmick for Locke in Final Fantasy VI. He does this multiple times where he steals uniforms. So maybe they really wanted that card, and they unfortunately backed themselves into a unplayable rendition of it.
Yeah, I have not found this to be a compelling inclusion in any of my blue drafts so far. But that's kind of what I'm envisioning blue, like saboteurs, maybe some flyer type things. And then in black mages as some of the primary things, a lot of the non-creature spells, just like in Final Fantasy Draft. But the Vera, the rabbit people classes have they have fencers and assassins and spellblades, which I think would be interesting in black as kind of an aggressive black deck, like an actual aggressive attacker black deck that you don't super often get. They usually kind of go a more attrition direction.
One of the things we were talking about near the top of the pod was ways to mix classes. That's a big thing that you're hoping to do. I guess another component that we haven't talked too much about that is maybe a little Zendikar-y is the idea that you have your little, I don't know if it's called a clan or whatever, your little group of guys.
It is called clan. Good job.
And something to do with that might also be kind of fun because that gives like white another mechanic or another synergy to shoot for. Is I want to have like a variety of creatures and defined in some way. We probably can't use literal types because there's probably going to be 15 different types.
That's the worry. Because they did try that in Zendikar Rising. They had a big batch, and then they narrowed it down over the course of the design. They thought about it for the Dungeons and Dragons set, the first one, not Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, just because like party is just like a home run. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there were just too many types, so they just took it out of AFR. Maybe do a bigger batch. I mean, Outlaws is 5 creature types, right?
Or I guess your clan is going after a quest, so maybe it's like this group of creatures is attempting to accomplish this thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not about clan organization. It's more just like a quest, a team quest. And you somehow need to use multiple creatures, or this is kind of vague, but I'm just trying to dig around to see if there's some.
Oh, I'm all for it. Yeah, no, absolutely. My first thought was the quest counter enchantments, which are not subtype quests. I wish they were, but they did one in Modern Horizons, which I think was interesting. Whenever a land enters, it gets a quest counter, and then instead of that being the prerequisite, you must landfall enough times to make this turn on. They made it have a 5 and a black sacrifice this enchantment ability, and it costs 1 less for each quest counter. So if you draw it late, it's not just stone dead because you're out of land. And if you draw it early, it's quite good because your landfalls are all ahead of you.
Yeah, you start to charge up this quest for the necropolis.
Yeah. And how do you feel about quest enchantments generally?
Well, we just had an episode on quests like about 2 months ago where we went on all the way in on them.
Okay, excellent. I have homework.
uh, we went in being like, yeah, quests rule. And we came out like, man, quests are hard to do.
Perfect. Okay, great.
The journey was difficult for us. This quest for the Necropolis or the original Zendikar quest, like you got to build up a couple counters and then something happens.
Mm-hmm. You turn in the quest for some outcome.
These are like awful top decks typically. Maybe the Modern Horizon style one's a little less bad. So the kind of compromise there is maybe like the Final Fantasy style quest where enter the battlefield, destroy a creature. And then later, if you get 3 treasure tokens, you finish the quest. So you have this kind of compromise of the 2 sets of bonuses. The other kind of challenge with quests is that you typically need a lot of text in order to talk about 2 different triggers. You have the trigger for progressing the quest and the trigger for completing the quest. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we thought about is like, how do you get those combined? How do you make it so that like, you know, the trigger and checking for completion are the same thing?
Yeah.
That's the summary of the episode, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're referring to side quest Hunt the Mark in Final Fantasy, where they have these 5 side quest enchantments that all these, and I avoid DFC at all cost.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that you're right. That's the other thing we talk about. It's like if you want to cheat and just have twice as much text on the card by having it be double-sided, you also have that option.
Yeah.
Cheat. What is this value judgment? But
I really like Zendikar, and I really think that there is a world where quests can be fun and evocative and cool, and yet the Zendikar gameplay is lackluster. Unless all your quests have cycling or are MDFC lands that you can play, then yeah, I don't know. They also did in Fallout, they did a quest counters mechanic on your creatures, like on non-land permanents, so you could put quest counters on your quest, or you could put them on your creatures, and all the creatures had some weird little
Yeah. That I did not know that when we recorded that podcast, and looking at those cards like, holy cow, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I thought I knew about these sets, but I did not know any of these cards were in there. And there's some wordy buddies in there too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're all
9-liners
like 8 lines. Yeah, 8, 9 lines.
I guess other executions there was like the 5 Theros pseudo quests where like every time this creature attacks, you get a counter. Once you get to 3 counters, you complete the quest.
Yeah.
Here's sort of like equipment or something that's like does something in the meantime, kind of like the side quest, like enter the battlefield, do a thing, later flip and get a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
But is there I'm trying to think if there's a way to have like to designate like a group of creatures or something. This is maybe getting weird, but if I can say like, here's this clan, and it's got, once you have 4 creatures, you can create a clan, and that a clan, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little Boros-y, I guess.
Yeah, when the clan has a combined power of 8 or greater, or when a clan attacks in a single turn.
Yeah. Or I guess it could be things on the monsters that are just flavored like quests. Like, oh, here's our Ahriman, or here's our Quirrell, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. You
have the name of the quest to kill that creature on the card, and then you just have like 5 creatures with death triggers that are like, oh, quest complete. You get a sword. I guess, wait, if all your creatures or if all your enemy creatures are monster, then you can incentivize when you kill monsters.
That's true. Are we designing Monster Hunter?
But that's when you need double-sized cards, because Monster Hunter monsters are humongous.
Oh, that's right. It's a bunch of meld cards.
Yeah. There's like a trail and then a bait, and then those together form a gigantic monster. Yeah.
The common thing that I think, like sketching out right now is, if you remember in Theros Beyond Death, they had these really simple enchantments that did something at ETB, and then they just sat around and you can stack them to scry.
Yeah.
Maybe something less like enters shop or enters make a gill. Something that it's worthwhile to play the card, and then you get the optional cash in of like, if you attacked with 3 more creatures this turn, the creature an opponent controls with power 4 greater was destroyed this turn, whatever, then you can sacrifice it.
This is feeling a little bit, I don't know tactics that specifically, but Final Fantasy in general. What is a town? A town is a place to pick up a couple quests and to do some shopping.
Yep.
Um, so something that represents like visiting a new town or whatever, and looking at their bounty board.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have 5 of those for sure. The omens are the ones that you're talking about,
Yeah, that's right.
which entered, had a spell effect, and then sacked to scry. Reading those felt kind of do nothing when I first saw them. I remember being kind of like puzzled, like, oh, these seem kind of boring. Why are there 5 at common? But they managed to overlap with like almost everything you want to do in the set. Because you
Yeah.
and
What
because of
the
yeah.
what's not written on the card is this enchantment triggers constellation, gives you one devotion spell to
Yeah. 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 So
all effects that matter.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe that's the right inspiration. Like visiting a town or visiting a bounty board, I guess you could call it, or something like that. Or a tavern board.
Yeah, all of the cities in the games have a shop and a pub. The pubs where you get quests, and the shops where you buy items. So it would
Yeah.
make sense to tie those two together.
Yeah, that gives you like the ability to shop for lands or maybe even colorless things or things of that color.
Mhm.
I guess if you could theme the bounty boards or whatever after each of the different towns. Oh, here's the blue town, here's the red town, here's the black town.
Yeah, I like that.
We're thinking that the creature type stuff is mostly about one creature combining multiple types, more so than a couple creatures teaming up to do something. That's a little too outside what we're aiming for.
I think so. I don't
Yeah.
know that I want any kind of payoff for you have a single creature that is a wizard and a rogue and a warrior because it has a bunch of equipment on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am interested in certainly the overlap of the equipments and what abilities they grant and the way they interact.
Yeah, yeah. I guess another piece that could be good, which maybe Job Select solves, but if I'm thinking of the difference between Final Fantasy mainline games and a tactics game, is the number of party members.
Mhm.
I don't know quite how to rig that, but it's just like a really high level goal.
Yeah,
A bigger board somehow, maybe tokens, maybe something else.
abundant hero token production.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you have to increase the evasion density to keep beams from coming up, but I think that's certainly solvable. You just don't
yeah.
want to run into the low win problem of you have a big board of creatures and their types matter, and you have to think about the ways that their different types matter.
Oh, yeah, yeah. A lot of onboard kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair. When I got into custom magic like 5 or 10 years ago, like board stalls were like the main problem that I ran into playtesting all the time. But
Mhm.
I feel like in modern magic, like modern limited, I would love some more board stalls. It feels like
Oh
they're
yeah, yeah. Modern limited is over very quickly.
yeah, yeah.
It feels like you get hardly any time to set up and kind of explore the mechanics, and you're like, oh well, that 4/4
Yeah.
trample was going to kill me. So
What can we do to encourage, boards of 5 creatures or whatever to happen a little more often?
yeah, I think my broad goal for the set, to kind
Yeah.
of sum up what we've covered, would be that we have a lot of low complexity individual cards,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it's their interaction that emerges with a bit more complexity over the course of the game. The way that
Yeah,
the game can unfold has some more
yeah,
complexity, and maybe that's where your tactical ability can be
yeah.
expressed.
I don't know. It's like even more abstract a goal than some of the other ones we talked about, but
Well, yeah, you
yeah.
that's completely fair.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
would want the broad complexity to be low on a card to card basis, and that I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
shop is where I want to put a lot of that complexity, so that the act of shopping is simple, and once you've learned it, then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something that everything else is easy to learn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that like you can kind of choose with custom stuff. Am I aiming for like singleton cube or am I aiming for like closer to a draft set? And I think like closer to a draft set, playing with a lot of commons feels more in line with your overall goal here. It's not
Oh,
about
for
playing
sure.
the one big hammer card. It's about,
Yeah,
building
yeah,
up
yeah.
things over the course of a longer. This is more about like a coalition of buddies that are all teaming up to try to get something done.
Yeah, an ideal game would be both players playing a variety of creature types, and then
Yeah.
one person eking out an advantage, perhaps with a well-timed combat trick or something.
Alrighty. Yeah. Yeah. I could talk about this kind of stuff forever and brainstorm forever, but I think that's probably a good spot to hang it up for today.
Yeah, you give me some really good thinking points. Absolutely.
All righty. Anything else about if people want to try one of these out? Would you say Tactics 1 or Advance 1, Advance 2 is one of them the good one, or how does that work?
I love both of them. Tactics
Okay.
A2 on the DS is actually my favorite video game, period.
Oh, okay. Damn.
Tactics Advance has a better story. I will just tell you straight up.
Okay.
It has a cool kind of motivational twist throughout the course of the story. But the way that they did the laws, which is every tactical game has ways that they will attempt to prevent you from using the same god party every single game.
Oh my god.
So like Pokemon does this with gyms, where you can't just run over with your same fire party, because eventually you're going to run into a water gym and they will hose you.
Okay.
Pun intended. So in Tactics 1, the way that they did this, time you went into a fight, certain things would be illegal, and you would get your party member would get removed from the game if you broke the law more than once.
Oh.
So, for example, broadswords are illegal, and so if your gladiator is your best fighter, you need to change out his weapon, or you have to just use a different party member. And then ideally, over the course of the game, you're swapping out party members constantly, and you have kind of an even level across your clan, instead of having 6 of the best party members ever that you don't ever have to think about changing. In A2,
how did we not talk about this in the episode? This is insane.
Yes. Oh, sorry. In A2, again, this mechanic was not loved by people because they thought it was annoying to have to change out all the time. Right. So I didn't really want to represent laws in our gameplay. In A2, they did the opposite. Instead of the club, they did the carrot, and they said, instead of a law being illegal, and if you break the law, your character gets removed.
I feel like plane chase going on here.
If you don't use broadswords, or if you do use ice magic, for example, then you get a reward. You get a bonus item at the end of the fight in addition to your normal. So then the players are jumping through hoops to play with a certain party instead of not using a certain party member. They do use a certain party member that is maybe, I was never using my Beastmaster, but now if I use my Beastmaster in the fight and I use this Beastmaster spell, I get a bonus weapon. So A2 is the better game design.
Okay.
And Tactics 1 has the better story.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I ever played the second one. This whole like incentives thing is just blowing my mind. I want to just flip over one of these at the start of the draft.
Yeah.
whenever you use a rat, whenever you equip 2 equipment onto a creature, or whenever you you draw like an extra card, or something crazy happens. I want these law cards. Or what are the good laws? What are the
do you know about they do commander parties with every set, where they give you some additional layer to commander, where they have some modification to the way that normal commander games play out?
Commander does not need additional rules, unfortunately.
You're very correct. The one from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, I've always thought it's really cool. It has like these bounties, and every one is themed around a villain or some outlaw who you are as a group trying to outwit in some way, or survive against, or capture. And so one of them is like a vampire who, to catch them, you have to make an opponent lose life. And every turn cycle, the bounty on them grows. And so first it's like a treasure, and then it's like a card, and then it's like a treasure and a card. And the longer it takes for someone to do the bounty, the higher the, and then somebody eventually jumps through the hoop and they get to cash in on treasure and card, and then it flips to a new bounty, a new villain.
Oh, I gotta find this.
But giving people a little hoop, a little like drafting goal, is always kind of cute. I think that is pretty much the rarity system, is that the first rare you see with a niche requirement is like, oh, I guess I'm going to try to do Azorius non-creature spells, but doing it more directly could be interesting.
Yeah. It's such a huge thing to think about. Like, we could like basically shift the pick order of this cube every time we play it, because the judges have arrived and have flipped over a new law.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. And then you've got the card that changes the law or lets you evade the law, or, whatever else.
Yeah, there's a character in Final Fantasy 1 Tactics A and A2 that specifically is about breaking the law and giving you cards that turn off laws, disabling laws that you don't want to play against.
Yeah, well, I almost landed the plane, and they're like, "Oh, we're going back in the air,"
and we're just going to skip a little bit off the ground.
But now maybe we can wrap it up. If we want to talk more about it later, we can. But for now, maybe that's good.
Yeah, it's food for thought for the listener.
We're always looking for weird formats here on the pod, so I didn't know about this Thunder Junction one. I'm gonna have to look that up. But anyway, before we get out of here, I want to remind people about our monthly design challenge. This is one of your main ways to interact with the podcast. You know, if you don't want to hang out in Discord all day, you don't want to be trying to get on episodes or making your own set or building a whole thing, why not give us one card? Think of a card, submit it. We'll talk about it on the pod, and it's great. Our one for July is to July down, design a card that taps other creatures. We're nice and simple on the prompt here. We're just going to let you tap some creatures. We do some bonus points. We got you snooze, so do it without blue for you. You snooze, do it without using blue mana directly, maybe a white card or maybe tapping happens for some other reasons. And then you lose, give the card a drawback or a double-edged sword. Make a tapping card, hey, that's cool. What downside would make a tapping card cool? This may be something you could think about. Bonus points, they're optional, but something you could shoot for. Do you have any tappers or tapping spells? You're a cryptic command caster. Like, what are your favorite ways to tap creatures?
Oh, that's a good one. When you say tapper, my first thought is always Citadel Siege from Fate Reforged.
Oh, okay.
Which is the most brutally efficient tapper.
Yeah, start a combat, just tap something.
Yeah, you don't even have to think about it. And then the other mode is even crazier, 2+ counters on something every single combat.
Yeah.
I will cheat and use one of my own custom cards.
Oh, okay.
For my Alara set, the Bant theme is Exalted, of course, and I have an Exalted tapper. So when there's no creatures in play, like he's just it's a 0/1 Exalted and has a tapper effect. So you can just hit in with your 1/2, and when you play your next Exalted creature, that one has Summoning Sickness, so this is a 2/3. And then over the course of the game, its value shifts to the fact that it is an Exalted tapper, and its stats don't matter anymore. And then you're just tapping things down while having the Exalted trigger. So Exalted tappers are cool.
Is this like a trigger when I attack? If I attack alone, I tap something, or is this a...
No, it's like 2 tap creature.
Oh, okay. But with Exalted.
With Exalted. Yep.
This would be a perfect submission. I like this. If we're talking about like EDH staples, like tapping creatures is not really one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have sort of the sleep cards, like tap your opponent's entire board and then just hit them for 12.
Sleep is so brutal. The spell sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And can we learn from those cards? How do we make like a fun card? How do we make a card that like is appealing? Maybe it is on a legend or something so that it gives you some battlefield. Maybe kind of in like your Exalted Tapper. I've got some sort of legend that's hanging out, getting a couple taps in, but not just like ending the game immediately.
Mm-hmm. A cool one from Ikoria, if I have to pick a canon magic card.
Yeah.
Snare Tactician, whenever you cycle a card, tap target creature. It's like that's like a neat little upgrade.
I remember this one. Yeah, this was a fun one. Yeah, this had a place. The cycling deck was a fun deck.
For sure. I mean, until you Zenith Flare, that one was kind of a boring deck because all the cycling.
Yeah.
But there were some cool elements to that deck for sure, and this is
maybe slightly too good, but I would definitely say fun. Like every time you played that deck, like you have a good time.
Yeah, you're taking a lot of game actions.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe kind of like your Exalted thing. Hey, what's like kind of a common thing that's not all the time, but is, we can do often enough that we can tap something every time we do that. Kind of like the Snare Tactician.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good pick. That's a good inspo. All right. And if you want to submit for that, that'll be due July 25th. You want to hop on the Discord to do that. And that'll be it for the podcast for the week. Go Discord. That's where all the action is. We got probably some, the space set is probably getting some more previews in the next couple of weeks. And it's always fun to be on the Discord, dissecting all the new cards. Someone says, oh, we've never had this trigger before. That kind of fun trivia. People are always digging through all the new spoilers. So I hope to see everyone there. And also, I want to thank you for coming on the show. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like I said, I get to talk about Cube and judging sometimes, but I pretty much never get to talk about custom design except with Cade, who you may have heard on Recross the Paths.
Oh yeah, we
Um,
crossed the paths. Yeah, absolutely.
he's a local with me and one of my judge mentors, and
Oh, okay.
we design custom sets together all the time. We did a 24-hour challenge in 2021 maybe, where we didn't do 24 consecutive hours because we have
Okay.
lives,
Yeah.
but we just sketched out like 8 hours on 3 Saturdays, and we could not
Ooh.
work or think about the set except during those 8 hours.
I could not think about it. I like that.
Yeah, and we just saw like how far can we get in 24 hours of design. It was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds fun.
But yeah, I don't have a lot of people that I can talk about design stuff with, so this was really great for me. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll have you back on. I don't know if this is too stereotypical, but I also want like a judgy episode because I feel like there's some rules stuff that people could learn for when they're designing their Magic cards. That until you try to design your own cards, you don't realize why those rules exist.
Yeah, I think so much of my feedback whenever I see a custom card anywhere is just on templating. It's
Yeah,
like, well,
yeah,
you have to say this is an intervening if. You phrase it like a trigger. You
yeah,
can't do that.
yeah.
'Cause you have,
Why intervening ifs exist? You know how targeting works for those kinds of things. Yeah, maybe we can give people a little bit of a resource for when they're designing their cards.
yeah, sure.
Do you want to tell people? I guess we'll have links in the show notes, but you've got plenty of other cubes or anything else you want to tell people about? Any?
Well, I work at Trade Routes in Tulsa.
Oh, okay.
You can buy cards from Trade Routes on TCG Player, but I don't think the name is Trade Routes, so I don't really know if plugging it is effective.
Oh no.
That's my part-time job. I'm also a network engineer full time.
And you're at events too, right? Do you know what the next event
Yes,
you're going to be at is?
that's my next plug. Is I'm also a cube judge. I've judged five events this year, and I will judge one more, a
5 events
sixth.
this year.
Yep.
Wow.
I in August I'll be at Cube for a Cause in Brooklyn. Would
Okay.
love to see any of you there. Anyone who listens would love to get a shout out whenever I'm there. Just let me know.
Cube for a
Uh, the
cause.
the
Okay.
secret word is pumpkin. That's in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay. A little East Coast action. Cube for a
Yep.
cause. Alrighty. We'll get some links up for that too. What's your favorite of your cubes? What's your baby right now?
My baby always is the Almond Desert is my desert cube that was
Oh,
at the first 3 CubeCons and
okay.
has gotten a lot of people interested in deserts.
Yeah.
Just from the volume of people who talk to me about deserts after playing it, and like, hey, the first time I played a desert was at CubeCon, and
Yeah.
like this has got me thinking about a desert, and I want to do, just for
Mm,
those who don't know, a desert cube means there is no basic land station. You must
yep.
draft all the basic lands that you want to play, and
Yeah.
it gives like an added layer to the draft. You thinking about what colors you can produce and what spells you want, what colors you need to cast your spells, and that's like a really fun way to design. So I tinker with that one endlessly all the time. You
Oh,
mentioned my
okay.
vehicle cube was at
Yeah.
Washington Cube Champs.
Yeah.
In August, I'm going to be taking World War of the Spark with me, which is a Planeswalker themed cube. Has
All right.
100 Planeswalkers,
Oh, hell yeah.
and you start the game with Interplanar Beacon on the battlefield tapped, which
Oh,
which
just
is
tap for mana or whatever. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead. Go
whenever
ahead.
you cast a Planeswalker spell, you gain a life, and it has 1 tap, add 2 mana of different colors to cast Planeswalker spells. So every
Oh.
Planeswalker with different pips in its cost can go in any deck.
Oh. Damn. It's just like your mech hanger in
Yep.
I got your
Just
drift.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a type, as you can tell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've ascended past like normal cube construction. You're like, nope,
Yeah,
never get the land. Sorry, guys.
you can pick Obnixilus the adversary, pack one, pick one, and then play it in your blue-white tokens deck if you want.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, if people want to get in contact with you on Blue Sky or anything like that.
Yes, I am Goblin Gathering on Blue Sky, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
am Lucky Looter on
I'll
Discord.
follow you. I'll do that after this pod. Yeah. All right. If you need to find me, Discord's the best way, but I'm also on Blue Sky, Tim F. Riley, same as on the Discord. And most of all, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.